Are you ready to create your extraordinary life? I'm Terry Yoffe and have 8 decades of living on this planet. And the one thing that I've learned is that you start to create change by changing yourself. You need to get out there, challenge yourself, find your courage, and then step into what you want. As a coach, armed with my 60 years of wisdom, life, business experiences, and knowledge, I guide and help others start to uncover what keeps them stuck by choosing to create a new way of being so they can step into the person they only dreamed of becoming. Every podcast episode will inspire you to confront your limiting stories, take bold steps, and create the extraordinary life you deserve.
The culture comes top down. So are you creating a culture for success? So that's coming top down. But innovation and ideas come bottom up.
Frank Zaccari is creating change by helping companies understand that success isn't just about strategy. It's about resilience, trust, confidence, and most importantly, the power of connection. Frank shared with us his passion, teaching people how to walk on water. But first, you need to find where the rocks are before you can create meaningful change. Welcome, Frank Zaccari. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, Terry. It's always a pleasure to be with you, to talk with you, and see you again.
Yeah, same here. So today we have Frank Zaccari. Frank is a speaker, award-winning bestseller, author, entrepreneur, and relationship expert. Today, Frank, let's pull back the curtain to start and talk about you, your challenges, your struggles, how you got to where you are today, because we all have a little bit of a backstory.
We certainly do. I've had probably a number of what I would call course corrections because I don't like the term pivot all that much. I started in Western New York. I was born there in Buffalo in a steel town, and everything revolved around steel. And that was it. You were going to work in steel your whole life. And I said, that's not happening. The draft was still going on, and my lottery number was 10. So Vietnam War was still going on. So it was either you either leave the country, which I wasn't about to do, go into the Army for 2 years and go to Vietnam, or enlist in another branch of the service and hopefully get it. But now you got to go 4 years. If you drafted, you had 2 years. If you enlisted, you had 4 years. So I enlisted in the Air Force as a medic, figuring that medics stay where the airplanes are. Airplanes are never where the fighting is, and chances of me being shot at were slim. So that's what I did. But I learned a great deal. I left New York, came to California with the military. And it's an interesting thing, Terry, because I've gone through college and through master's programs and all kinds of years of training. But I learned more in 4 years in the military than I probably learned anywhere else. I learned how to collaborate. I learned how to work around obstacles. I learned how to find solutions instead of just walking into somebody's office and say, I can't do this, or this isn't working. You have to figure out how to make it work with it, to build relationships. Because in the military, one of the things they always talk about is the mission. The mission is the most important thing. Yes, it is important, but what's important is a relationship that you have with the people that are in the mission with you. And if you don't have respect and trust, the mission's going to fail. And as I moved on with my life, I found that respect and trust were the downfall in some of my personal relationships. And it was also a piece that made me successful in my professional life because I was able to find people, trust them, show them respect, and then allow them to do their job. That was the big thing. We then moved on post-military into a tech world where did very well, moved up quickly. And then my then wife left, and I had custody of my 2 young children. That was the aha moment. Right? That was okay, now we have to do something. So I was living in Seattle. I left Seattle, came back to Sacramento where my children were born, and got out of high tech because I traveled too much. And then everything changed. Now here's this type A personality, just driven, focused. Everything was always about career, and everything else was on the back burner. And now I have these two young daughters that I have to take care of and raise and make them healthy. And so in going into counseling, one of the big things, Terry, was the counselor said to me, Frank, you got a number of problems here. Number one, you're male. And I said, well, I can't change that. Number two, you're going to have to learn how to listen and not try to fix things because you can't fix this. And I said, okay, this is going to be a tough one. And number three, you're going to have to validate feelings. They have to work through it. You're going to have to listen and you're going to have to validate their feelings. So I thought, oh my God, this is it. I can't do this. But I had to. These are my children. So as I went through this process, Terry, I learned you have to put time in. Communication is not just talking. It's not just saying something at somebody. It's being clarity. First, you have to connect. You have to have a connection with the individual or individuals. You have to be clear. And then you have to be committed. And whatever you say you're going to do, you do. And you follow through on it. I started writing books. This is where we talked about before we went on the air, walking on water. Okay, well, one of the things as I was going through this, Kathleen Canavis, who's an award-winning author and a publisher, came to me and she said, Frank, you need to write a book. And I want you to write a book about your business and life travels, because I did turnarounds of failing companies for many years. And she said, what's the big thing you do when you walk in? And he said, well, you don't know what's going to happen. You're not sure what you're walking into. And so the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. So when I would go in, I try to look at, okay, what's going on here? What's the good, the bad, and the ugly? And I would meet with every employee. And the bad and the ugly come out really fast. And then I would always say, if you could do one thing, just one thing to make things better, what would it be? And most of the time you get the deer in the headlights, like, oh my God, no one's ever asked me that. And I said, well, you've been here 5 years, I've been here 5 minutes. Tell me. And some of them would actually give me ideas. And a lot of times the ideas were really good. So I said, that's a great idea. I want you to run with it. Let's monitor it and let's follow up and make sure that it works. And so it was putting that trust back to people and saying, okay, how do we make this better? What can we do to improve the situation? And as you start going through it in the business world, as you know, things are going to come up that you don't expect and you don't see coming and you're not prepared for. That's what walking on water is about, is taking the time to step back and start to identify these things are going to happen. You may not see them coming. Chances are you're working in the business and not on the business. And as these things come in, it's like so many business owners are in shock. Oh my God, I didn't expect this. Well, you weren't looking. And when COVID came along, which just blew my mind, and people would say, well, no one could have seen that coming, Frank. No one saw that coming. And I said, well, you don't know what the crisis is, but you know when it's coming. You know when's coming. So what are you doing to prepare for it? How are you looking introspectively? What are you doing with your staff to say, well, if A, B, or C occurs, what should we do? Talking to your customers, having contingency plans, being ready to make a course correction if need be. Okay, let me give you an example. During the COVID thing, the high-end restaurants they got devastated because they don't have takeout and they don't have drive-thrus, right? So we met with a few of them down here in Southern California and said, look, you have all the information about all your customers because everybody pays with a credit card. Nobody's spending $250 on dinner and paying in cash. So you have all their information. First thing we would suggest is contact them, either by phone or email, whatever you have. Ask them, how are you doing? Are you okay during this situation? All right. Then say to them, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, whatever day you decide, you can still have these great meals that you love so much. We're going to make this special dish on these days. Contact us by X date and we'll prepare it, and the actual delivery of the food to your home will be on us. And we hope to see you when you can come back. All right. So we kind of track that. And the restaurants who did that saw a big increase. They were able to keep their key employees who were the chefs, right? And then as we came out of this and people started coming back, it wasn't just husband and wife. It was friends, family, events. Everything started going to them. And the ones who listened and tried this found out that they were now doing significantly better than they were prior to going into the COVID situation. So again, it was something they didn't see coming, but they were able to make a course correction, identify what it is I need to do or we need to do to be successful, to continue to move forward, to keep our customer base and expand it, And it turned out to be a very good thing for them. It was also a lot of fun to do because you couldn't go see them, so you had to do it by Zoom all the time. And we would say, okay, let me see the letter that you wrote. Let me see what that is. And it was a lot of fun. When I left Seattle and went to Sacramento, I bought an insurance agency because I had to have something to pay the bills with. And I hated it with a passion. So as soon as my youngest daughter graduated from Arizona State and got a job, I sold it. And then we got to where we are now, which is writing books, having podcasts like you. They're not as good as yours, but I have podcasts. And then just doing speaking engagements. And the engagements are, one of them is about leadership and walking on water. But the one I'm getting the most interested in is the critical nature of relationships in success, both personally and professionally.
Let's go back to the Army for a minute, or the military for a second. Did you feel that back then you had to figure out how to walk on water with all of those that you were involved with and working with? And unbeknownst to you back then, were you actually putting some of what you're doing now in play back then?
Yes, I was. I didn't know what it was called back then because we didn't use terms like collaboration and emotional intelligence. We didn't use those terms way back then. What the big turning point for me in the military when I was in the Air Force was I'm all of 21 years old and I'm an E4. I have 3 stripes, right? And the Colonel Zimmerman, why he's even talking to me is beyond, he shouldn't be talking to me. But he and the Chief Master Sergeant come over to me and they said, Frank, we want you to run the pediatric clinic. And I said, in the military, you always say, with all due respect. So I said, with all due respect, sir, doesn't someone with a higher rank usually have that position? And he said, usually, yes, but I think you can handle it. And I said, once again, with all due respect, sir, are the people with higher ranks, do they not want to deal with 90 sick children a day? And he started to laugh. And he said, well, that too, but I still think you can handle it. And then he said, and here was a turning point, Terry. He said, and your challenge is, as if being with 90 sick children a day is not a big enough challenge, he said, you have no staff. And I thought, oh my God, I'm being set up to fail. And then he said, I'm going to have a meeting with the Red Cross, and we're going to bring volunteers in to work with you. Now, here's what you have to do, Sergeant. You have to explain why we do what we do, how we're going to do it, and then what you're going to do to support them. And he said, keep in mind, volunteers don't have to give you an answer. They don't have to show up, and they don't have to tell you why. So you have to create an environment where they want to be here and they fully understand what it is that's expected of them and how you're going to protect them. I didn't realize I was walking on the start of the walking on water back then, but that was it. It's if you can't do it alone, you're going to have people around you at some point. And how are you going to make them successful? How are you going to make them comfortable? How are you going to help them to reach whatever potential level they want to get to? Because I learned in the military that leadership isn't about, I've got a title and I can, although in the military, you can tell people to do it because I said so. But again, the good leaders were, I'm going to tell you what we want to do and then engage you into how can we make this work?
So now fast forward to today, and you've seems like you've taken a lot of these principles that you learned and are using them. Stay tuned. Frank has more to share. And now a short message from our sponsor, Try Coaching. Are you at a crossroads in life? Perhaps you had a career for many years and now you want to make a change, which requires you to reinvent yourself. You buy books on reinvention, and yet, after spending countless hours reading, you still have no idea. That's where I come in, a reinvention coach that can help you navigate this process. And it doesn't start by looking outward. Reinvention starts on the inside and then eventually looking out. I have successfully done this many times. I can help you do the same. Reach out and let's start a conversation. Now, back to the podcast. So what does it take to go into a company, which I assume is what you do, look around and start to figure out what are the steps necessary to have that company shift, do better, and understand that communication and relationships are really what create companies that thrive.
The best thing, what I learned was, because the first one I went to was a turnaround. I didn't know it was a turnaround. I was with AT&T. I was a government operation director, and didn't like the direction that AT&T was going in. So I left and went to a smaller organization who was not publicly traded. So they basically lie to you and tell you what their financials are. And then I get in and I said, oh my God, you're going to run out of cash in 10 months. So let's figure out what we have to do. And a lot of it, Terry, is listening, talking to the leaders. What is it that you're trying to do? What do you perceive issues to be? Where do you want to go? And what do you believe is preventing you from getting there? Okay. Then it's going and talking with the staff, to the key players, and to everyone. I wanted to talk to everybody. And as I said, what's the good, the bad, and the ugly? What do you see that could make what you're doing here better? Why are you doing it like this? Is there something, do you see another way to do it? And more times than not, they will tell you what the issue is. They will tell you. And then it's simply a matter of saying, all right, here's what I've observed. This is what we've talked about and discussed. Here is what I would suggest we do going forward. Okay, first off, you got to document everything. So let's lay it out. One of the companies was a wholesaler. Okay, how are you taking the material in? What is the steps you're going through? Why are you going through 6 steps? Can we get it down to 3? And the team basically comes up with a solution. What I found was, if you're a leader, just set the tone, set the culture, make people feel they're comfortable and they're safe and that they're respected, and then get the hell out of the way and let them do the job, because they don't want it to fail. They want it to be successful. They don't want to be looking for another job. So it's engaging yourself with the people in the organization. Now, some of them don't want to be there, and okay, fine, they leave. But most people want to be successful. Most people want to do a good job. I believe it's the job of the leader, responsibility of the leader, to create that environment for them to feel good.
You talk about success isn't just about strategy, right? It's about resilience, trust, confidence, and the power of human connection. I love that. Those are such pivotal ways of being, and it seems so obvious. Yet, how many companies don't have those principles in place?
Well, when I was coming up, the majority of them did not. I think they're getting better, but the vast majority did not. It was a bottom line mindset. I don't care. Keep your feelings outside the door like they're a backpack. Okay. It doesn't work. The pounding on the desk doesn't work, and it never did. So I think the strategies are wonderful, but if you don't have people to execute the strategy, so what? What do you have? You've got a really nice document and it looks good on an annual report, but you're not getting it done. So what is it you have to get to is things are going to go wrong. They just are. So you're going to have to be resilient. You're going to have to pick yourself up time after time after time. And then you make adjustments. Okay. You have to be resilient. You have to reach out and interact with people. And you have to get feedback from people. And the best people to get feedback I found are from people within your own organization. So many times that will bring me in and they say, well, here's Frank, and he's an expert. He's going to do this and this and this. And I'm talking to their staff, and their staff is giving me the answers. Okay. So a lot of times what in some leadership capacities is they feel they have to have the answer. And what I've always said was that the culture comes top down. So are you creating a culture for success? So that's coming top down. But innovation and ideas come bottom up. So you have to create that place for the people and have these relationships with them so that they feel comfortable that they can bring an idea that might be different. All right. Starbucks was a great example. I lived in Seattle. I owned Starbucks stock. That's how my oldest daughter went to college, was on Starbucks stock. And so I was living in Seattle, so I went to the stockbroker, right? Mr. Whoever the CEO was, Schultz probably had more cash in his pocket than I had total stock, right? And so I'm listening to the meeting, and they come up with Frappuccino. Okay, well, the Frappuccino idea came from a Starbucks office in Santa Monica, California, because it was summer and it was getting warm and less people were coming in. So the manager there wanted to know, well, what could we do to keep people coming? And back then, this is the standard practice. Best practice was no blenders. Seattle's Best didn't have them. Tully's didn't have them. So Starbucks didn't have them. They didn't have blenders because blenders break down, blenders slow down the line, blah, 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 right? So this gentleman, manager, brings his blender from home and starts making blended drinks, frappuccinos and other things. And he's putting them out, when you pay at Starbucks, they say, here's a sample, try this. And the customers tried them and they loved it. They loved it. Now, Starbucks, to his credit, said, well, we might be onto something here. Instead of it, well, we didn't do it in the boardroom, therefore it can't be any good. They said, we might be onto something here. And they created this whole new environment, this whole new blended drinks and frozen drinks and all these other kinds of things. Now, how'd that work for them? Pretty good. Well, they're 20, almost $30 billion corporation now. All right. Because they listened inward, and allowed people the freedom to put ideas on the table. Now, I'm not going to take every idea on the table, but as long as you tell people, hey, I'm willing to listen. If we can't do what you're suggesting, here's why. But here's what we can do instead. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think this applies to all companies across the board, like the big ones, like JP Morgan or some of those big heavy hitters versus the smaller companies? Now, I'm not saying Starbucks is a small company, but it was kind of, I think, a family-owned business before it grew. And so where do you see this process of resilience, confidence, human connection, which I think is key, happening?
It has to happen across the board with all organizations. Now, sometimes, believe it or not, sometimes it's harder to do with a small organization because if the owner, the entrepreneur is still there, so often, Terry, they just think they're the smartest person in the world. This is mine. I created it. I know what I'm doing. And they push people away. So people who could come in and could contribute, they don't listen to them. Or it's, no, this is mine. We're going to do it this way because I said so. Right? So smaller companies, if you can't change that mindset at the upper level, you're not going to make it. You're going to fail. I mean, 60% of them fail within 3 years. The bigger companies, it's a cultural mind shift change. It depends on who your leaders are and where they came from within the organization. All right. I'm seeing more and more them trying to open up and create a connection and a collaborative environment. I think COVID opened the doors dramatically because now you can't have the manager sitting in the corner and everybody in cubicles in front of the individual. That's gone. That was ended. All right. Now, I interviewed Dr. Edward Hess from the University of Virginia at the Darden School. He's a futurist, and he blew me away. He just said, Frank, one of the things we're going to learn in COVID is that managers, as we know them today, are going to become obsolete. They're going to be gone. And I said, really? What's it going to be? He said, it's going to be facilitators and collaborators. If you can't facilitate and collaborate with people, you're not going to make it as a manager because the days of just sitting there watching the clock, did you show up on time? Did you leave on time? That's all nonsense. That didn't get anything accomplished anyway. So I think they're starting to see that because you got to look at who's coming into the workplace. Okay, the younger people aren't going to put up with the pounding on the desk and the yelling and the not giving them opportunities. They're going to leave. They will leave. And they'll leave in the middle of the day. And then I heard one individual I was working with, Terry, he said, well, they just don't have any loyalty. There's no loyalty. And so I said, all right, well, let's step back here. Let's take a look at loyalty. Let's look at it. Okay. I said, NASA. What's NASA mean to you? Okay. He's my age. All right. NASA is man on the moon. Big deal. NASA to another generation is they saw a teacher blow up. NASA is not a good thing to them. They saw their parents lose their homes through no fault of their own. They saw jobs being sent overseas through no fault of their own. They saw the financial meltdown through no fault of their own. What have we shown them that says you should be loyal? We haven't shown them anything. They've shown them that if I can make more money by taking this job and sticking it into another country, I'm going to do it. So they're looking at, I'm going to create my own career path and I'll learn what I can from you. And then I'll move over here and I'll learn over here and I'll learn over here. Now, the leaders who are understanding that are now coming back and saying, okay, We want top caliber individuals. So we're going to have to, they're going to have to be resilient. They're going to have to be willing to cooperate. And we're going to have to be able to build a relationship with them. Are they open to working in a relationship environment? All right. And then it becomes more of a recruiting mindset and model. Dr. Deborah, I'm going to draw a blank on her name here. She wrote the book Grit. Dr. Angela Duckworth wrote the book about grit. And in her book, she talks about the Army, West Point. Now, West Point had a dropout rate that was outrageously high. And they start recruiting kids at eighth grade. They start watching. All right. And they say, we got the best of the best of the best. And they're the captain of the football team. They're most likely to succeed. Everything came easy to them. They get into the Army, into West Point, and it's hard. And for the first time, they have to struggle, and they're dropping out. And they brought her in, and she said, you have to look for the grinders. You have to look for the people who have had to work through difficult situations, who didn't have everything handed to them, who weren't the best looking, who weren't the captain of the football team. You have to look for those kinds of individuals because they're going to stay with you. They're resilient because they had to be. They're going to be loyal because they want to be, not because they have to be. And they will build relationships and have trust and believe in the people around them. Okay. And they followed her pattern after a few cycles, and their dropout rate improved catastrophic. It was amazing what the difference was. Just amazing what it was. And when you look at Carol Dwork about mindset, and she was talking about people who've had things too easy for too long don't understand and aren't resilient because they just expect it to happen. It's just going to happen because I'm here and it's always worked out for me. Okay, well, life doesn't work out like that. Life is hard. And the people who are willing to pivot, I hate that term, course correct, like you did when I interviewed you, like I had to do multiple times because the industry moved or it changed. And you have to say, okay, what makes sense and where should I be going? And that's all about relationships.
As we start to wind down, which I don't want to do, what are some nuggets, tidbits you can leave my audience with about how to walk on water, finding the rocks?
Finding the rocks, know where the rocks are. It's how you walk on water. The big thing we said in the beginning, number one, you have to be resilient. You have to be able to pick up the pieces and go forward in life and in business. It's the same thing. You just pick up the pieces, start moving forward, make adjustments as you go along. All right. You have to have confidence. Confidence not being I'm the smartest person in the world, but confidence to believe that I will get to where it is I want to get to. I will put in the time and the energy. And the best thing about confidence is that you put in the work. Kobe Bryant one time said that the harder I work, the more confident I become. Okay, so you have to have that confidence. And then you have to have the positive relationships, the people who have been where you want to go, and people who are looking out for your best interest and are going to help you along the way, not just say, oh, you're the greatest thing in the world. You don't need that. You don't need those kind of people. You need people who are looking at you and saying, you've got something here. I can help you. Try this and this and this, and let's see what that does for you. But the positive relationships gives you the opportunity to continue to build and to grow because you can't do it alone. And the other interesting thing is that your mentors or your soulmates or whatever term you like, they're going to change over time. It's not a forever thing. It's as you continue to move and evolve, you'll say, this individual helped me at this level, but now this individual here is helping me at this level. And you're always looking to get to where you want to be. I read it yesterday and I can't remember who said it, but it was basically, he said, why do you want to spend your time with people who aren't going where you're going?
Why do you want to spend your time with people that aren't going where you're going? I love it. Frank, human connection, bottom line, wherever you are, business, personal, it's all about human connection and communication. And thank you so much for today. It's been a pleasure seeing you again. talking with you.
Always a pleasure, Terry. Take care.
Bye. We just heard Frank's compelling and extraordinary conversation that has offered you thoughts on the power of human connection. If you loved what you heard, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star rating and review. Also, please visit my website, trycoaching.com. Divorce can leave you reeling from the emotional scars of now confronting being alone or betrayed. Meet Hope Fursell, a certified divorce coach. Divorced herself, she understands the toll it took on her, her family, and her life. She is now helping others transform one of life's difficult times into powerful turning points. Her conversations shift women from overwhelm to clarity, confidence, and empowerment.